Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of SBJ Live. I'm Dan Kaufman with Sports Business Journal. Thank you so much for being here. As you are coming into the platform, I will go over just a few instructions that I do for every episode of SBJ Live. So if this is not your first episode, I apologize. You're going to get the instructions again. But if you're new, I want to reiterate a couple of things before I turn it over to our panel. First of all, the most important thing with an SBJ Live episode, in my opinion, is that we get your engagement and your interaction. And I'm talking to you, the audience members. This is not a passive experience. At least it's not meant to be. It's not recorded. It's live. So you can ask your questions of our panelists here and put them in the questions tab that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. And you can upvote questions as you see them come in. So if you really want to get to a question, you really want us to get to a question that you see come in, make sure you upvote that question. Second, there's a chat tab right next to the questions tab. That's where we want you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're coming from. And if you see people who you know in the chat and you want to say hello, please feel free to do that. All right. As people come in, I will introduce our panelists, and we'll go for probably about 40 to 45 minutes. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Global Ambitions, examining the NHL's growth strategy from the Olympics to a new CBA. We've got two great panelists, Brad Alberts, President and CEO of the Dallas Stars, and Keith Wachtel, President of NHL Business at the NHL. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time. I know it's a very busy time for you. Thank you for being here. And your moderator has been Alex Silverman. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. And thank you, Keith and Brad, for being with us today.
Thanks, Alex, for having us.
So let's start big picture. We're on the cusp of a new hockey season, always an exciting time. We'll start with you, Keith. From a business perspective, what is kind of the top headline for you heading into this season? What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm certainly most excited to see the Dallas Stars on the ice today and that great team that Brad has. So looking forward to that. I am very excited about our events this year. As you know, Alex, we are going to have two outdoor games in the warm and sunny state of Florida, celebrating the success of hockey in that state with the Florida Panthers, now two-time in a row Stanley Cup champions, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's exciting, if for no other reason. They've never hosted. Everyone's excited to try and think about how on earth are we going to pull off those games number 44 and 45 outdoor games. They will be sold out. Our business partners are really excited. Discover, who titles the Winter Classic, and Navy Federal Credit Union for the Stadium Series. So we're really excited about those two events. So are our business partners and our broadcasters. We're also going to be heading to Sweden for our 48th and 49th games overseas in Europe. Sweden, obviously a great market for us. So we're really excited to take the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators to Sweden. And then I think the real kind of icing on the cake and continuing the success of international play, the NHL heading back to the Olympics for the first time since 2014 in Sochi. Over 150 NHL players will be heading to Milan for the Olympics. And given the success and the enthusiasm, excitement, not just by our fans, but our players coming out of the Four Nations face-off, but the Olympics, there is no bigger platform. And we think it's going to be great, not only for our fans, our players, but the sport of hockey to participate in the Olympics again. So that's really what I'm excited about this season, Alex.
Yeah, definitely a lot there. Brad, what about you from the club perspective down in Dallas?
Yeah, well, we're obviously, sitting in a really good position down here, Alex. We've, as we've talked about, we've had great, on ice success really, since 2020. We've been to the finals. We've been to the Western Finals 3 times. So, watching our team play, continuing to try to strive for ultimately winning a cup for Dallas and for hockey in Texas again is a major goal. Seeing our new coaching staff led by Glenn Gulletson, who we hired this summer from Edmonton to hopefully figure out how to beat Edmonton, is going to be something that we're going to be really excited to watch. And I think along those same lines, our fan support down here in Dallas right now is exceptional. We're going through, kind of what the second, golden era of Stars hockey, as I call it. The first one was probably 98 to 01, and I think we're in the middle of that. We're going to, enter into 4 straight years of sellouts here in Dallas again. And that wasn't always the case, a decade ago. So we don't take that lightly. Our fan support down here has been incredible. The growth of hockey right now in Dallas and really in Texas is at all-time highs. And I think, as Keith touched on, the Olympics are going to be a real key thing for all of us. I think we're going to have, maybe 8 players off of our team playing, for their various countries in that tournament. And what we saw last year in the 4 nations was incredible. I mean, we had people in Texas that had never been to hockey games that were tuning in to watch that. So international hockey with our team, playing and participating is going to be great for the sport in February. And as always, we've got a couple big things planned for our fan base that I think they're going to like this year, and having those announcements come out are going to be really, really fun for everybody. So we're looking forward to a great year.
Yeah, and every new season brings new opportunities to grow revenue. I know that's your bread and butter at the league, Keith. What are some of the key growth opportunities that you guys are looking at the league level?
So, we're excited about the continued growth that we have had over the years. We expect to exceed $7 billion in league revenue, overall hockey revenue, for the first time ever this season, which is great. Testament really to the sport and where it is, right? It all starts with the play on the ice. And as Brad was alluding to, it's never been better, never been stronger, never had more young stars. Also with veterans like Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin playing at such a high level, right? So really excited about the game on the ice. We continue to really make an impact in the area of technology, right? I mean, that's really where we continue to drive revenue, whether it's continuing the growth of digitally enhanced dashboards, which now, multiple season in is really about how we use that technology to make the game better, to create more opportunities for our broadcasters, our clubs, and our business partners. And we're seeing that success. And each year, the clubs continuing to evolve on how they sell that very valuable asset continues to grow. Our technology partnerships, right? We believe we have, best-in-class partners who continue to help us make the game better on the ice, but as well as off the ice and at the league level. Various infrastructure needs that we have as you start getting into AI and InfoSec and all that. So we're thrilled in that area. And then you have, some of your more, traditional things that every league has done or starting to do, whether it's jersey patch and helmet branding and other signage elements. Our clubs are having a lot of success. We've sold over 90% of our jersey patches in the unique format because we allow, Alex, as home and away, as opposed to making brands have to buy a full season. So providing flexibility, right, for our clubs is always helpful. So when you look at all of that and you see the growth, not just at the league level, but you see it really at the club level too, in non-traditional categories, which I think is really helping spur growth. We see a lot of enthusiasm. And then I mentioned our events. We continue to look at how we grow that impact, not just for fan engagement, but from a revenue standpoint. Like I said, 2 sold out games in Sweden, all lead to what we believe will be another exceptional season, strictly from a revenue standpoint.
So let's dig into one of the things you mentioned, the digitally enhanced dashboard technology. I believe it's year 4 now, and it just seems like every year you guys are building on it, expanding the capabilities. What new innovations on that front can we expect for this season?
So we're going to use some more in-game elements. You've seen that slowly over time. Again, not just for production purposes that we think are better for the viewership of the game, but also for revenue opportunities. So whether that's, the teams that are playing, you'll see that before puck drop. You'll start to see more integrations on things like power play. So other key opportunities throughout the game where there's perhaps a stoppage of play and you could start to insert various elements for partners, overtime, shootout, things like that, goal scorers, stuff like that. You begin to be able to see that throughout a game, you can find opportunities to include branding. The other thing which we're excited about, given how good the technology has evolved, is looking at anywhere that there's currently signage on the ice, like the in-ice positions, right? So we have 8 in-ice positions in our game. As time goes on, right, the ice gets a little degraded because of the skates and skating on that play. Using the technology that we currently have to superimpose those over, but in a static environment, not to disrupt any of the game flow, but simply recreating what's already in the ice. But over time, you could see the opportunity to perhaps put all of the 8 in-ice logos, the virtual slot, DED, and glass, all the different areas where there's signage in our game, all as a full takeover for one partner, right? And that becomes really impactful, and you could fight that accordingly, right? So our whole goal in this technology is to take a static environment and figure out how to make it a little bit more dynamic and provide flexibility for all of us. So those are ways that we're looking at it. We also are implementing some new elements internationally, the ability to focus more on certain countries where we're focused on from a business perspective and some of our partners. So that element continues to be extremely successful, and we see a lot more growth in that over the next 4 years or 5 years as we look at what we've done the last 3 years prior.
Yeah, and Brad, what has the DED innovation meant for you guys at the club level? How much, how have your partners responded, and what has it meant for revenue there?
Well, yeah, it's been great. I think it's been a great, use of technology and an enhancement to kind of move our sponsorship business, forward. I think it certainly allows, us to enhance things for the TV broadcast that really gives fans, an in-arena experience while they're home watching on TV. I think, as Keith mentioned, the new feature integrations that the league has opened up, shootouts, power plays, things like that have given our sponsorship departments new inventory to take advantage of. The live game elements, again, that Keith talked about are really, really important. And so I think it's been a great technology use. I mean, all the things that the league kind of introduced to us, the helmet, the jersey, DED, kind of coming out of COVID, have been great, sparks for and growth engine opportunities for our sponsorship business that, our group has taken advantage of. In our case, we're still trying to, close on our jersey deal. Hopefully we can get that done here, shortly. That's certainly an element that we in Dallas would like to get sold for this year. And those things have been great additions to our inventory mix, over the years here to help us grow our number.
As it gets harder and harder for all sports leagues and teams to continue to drive revenue, renew deals, need to come up with ROI for marketers who are being a little bit more strict in how they evaluate properties. It's assets, it's new assets like this that really help drive the conversation, especially because it provides such an extensive media value, which is important to most marketers, and brand awareness. And now it's not a static environment. So, this is not just really for new revenue sales tools. It's as much to find ways to continue to renew our most valued partners with this new element that provides real value as we continue to ask for more money year over year in these types of transactions.
Yeah, and you guys both mentioned the importance of uniform sponsorship, a fairly recent addition to the inventory that you guys have to offer. Keith, what are you seeing in terms of trends now that that's been available for a few years? How has the availability of things like both the jersey and the helmet, how has that affected the market for those assets? What's kind of the lay of the land on uniform sponsorship?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brad is probably closer to it since we don't sell it at the league level, but I think just generally, and I would go beyond just the NHL. I think that, early on, there was a lot of international companies that were looking at this because of the exposure. There was some that were looking for those first few years of just brand awareness play. and then haven't renewed. I do find that generally these deals are done by more endemic, bigger partners that are more locally focused than nationally or even globally focused at this point. But I do see some new and creative ways for which clubs are coming up with selling this inventory, unique opportunities, whether it's for using as fundraising efforts and things like that. So what is nice to see is that while you'll have your fair share of deals that are the local healthcare system and things like that, which seem pretty common across the leagues, is you are starting to see more and more people, especially as deals come up, having to either renew or find new partners after those expire, to be a lot more creative in not only the companies but how those deals are being structured, because it is generally one of the more significant investments. And from that standpoint, I think we all have to be much more creative how we look at that.
Yeah, and Brad, Keith mentioned earlier the sort of flexibility that the NHL gives compared to some of the other leagues, home and away for both helmets and jerseys. The jersey, you have a couple different positions available to you with the chest and the shoulder. How does that flexibility, impact how you take these different assets to market?
Well, I think it's important because, as marketers that they're looking at it, Keith touched on it. I mean, we need to be flexible. We need to be creative. Like I said, we're in the middle of trying to get this sold for our club right now. And the need to, work around the needs of the marketer that would be interested in this is really important. And so the league has tried to be as flexible for the clubs as possible, I think, and making this as easy as we can to get it sold. It's not an easy asset to sell. Keith touched on it. It's expensive. These are big decisions for companies to make, not only from just the financial investment, but also the brand investment to marry their company with, in our case, the Dallas Stars, and trust our brand and trust what we do and our leadership and our players to represent their company's interests and vision as well. So there's a lot of things that have to come together in these situations, and the need to be able to customize and to be flexible is important. And I think the league has done that. I would just say and add to kind of what Keith talked about a minute ago, as I sit here as the president of our team, one of my biggest concerns about the business is continuing to find, the top line revenue growth necessary to keep pace, with expenses. And it's not just player expenses, but obviously in our case, the cap is going up, and to continue to, be able to fund and be a cap team and all those things is really important to an organization like ours. So the ability to be able to continue to tap into new top line revenue sources is going to be something that we're going to be, really focused on here over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, the salary cap, that kind of leads us to one of the other, big things I wanted to talk about. There's a new collective bargaining agreement. With that, we're kind of coming out of the flat salary cap era into an era where we expect to see the salary cap rise quite a bit over the next few years. Brad, just looking at the CBA, like, what are some of the big things that you expect to impact how you do business in Dallas?
Well, I think first of all, hockey operations, there's a lot of changes for our general manager, Jim Nill, and his staff to pay attention to. And some of those are still TBD, but, roster management, how to handle things around the trade deadline, how you build your roster for the playoffs, handling LTIR issues, are all going to be things that our hockey operations department is focused on. And I think they're already trying to get out in front of those to figure out how we're going to handle those as an organization. But that's really, really important because, obviously that has a lot to do with how we're going to build our team and continue to build our team moving forward. And then that has a direct impact on our business. I think certainly just looking at it lightly, the players, I think, are enjoying the reduction in dress code. Certainly ours are wearing shorts to the preseason games when it's 95 degrees out. So I think that change is going to be pleasantly, taken on by all the players. But there's costs that are, now going to be that we have to deal with at the club level that we have to pay attention to, and we are. But the CBA is negotiated by the PA and by the league, and it is what it is. And so the club, certainly in our case, we understand it and just react to it. But certainly from a hockey perspective, there's a lot of changes that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and Keith, for you guys, for you at the league level, obviously there's a lot of, kind of nuts and bolts to the changes to the relationship between, the labor relationship, of course, that come with the new CBA. But does it change anything commercially from the league's perspective?
We also adopted the dress code. So Brad and I are actually wearing shorts today. You just can't see it like sportscasters because we threw the jacket on for it. So I think the most important part of any CBA, right, is just the ability to provide certainty and stability for the whole ecosystem, right? So obviously for us, our broadcasters, our business partners, right, that's what everybody wants. They want to know that there's not going to be a work stoppage. And if I'm investing in multiple years, you're investing as well. So that's number one. Number two, I think what really has been, the big point of differentiation is just the relationship that we have with the Players Association right now. It's never been stronger. Marty Walsh, Ron Hainsey, and their team, obviously Commissioner Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, they really have established a great working relationship, as has all of their reports, so that we are all speaking from the same place. And that is to grow the game, to grow revenues, and to do the things that we know are going to be important. And some of those things that you're now seeing and have heard about is consistent with the Olympics every 4 years. In between that, consistency with the World Cup, which I'm sure we'll talk to, which we're going to do in 2028 every 4 years. The growth of just international in general and the investments that we're all willing to make in the growth of international as well as domestic to grow the sport. So I think that's really exciting. The other thing that I think, is if you listen to the players, certainly dress code, it's funny, right? What some of the things people are really interested in or excited about. There's been talk about the potential for an 84-game season, reduction in the preseason, which the players have talked a lot about. Listen, more hockey, the better. It gives us more flexibility and opportunity to do international games and other unique types of opportunities. That's, for us at the league level, exciting, but it all comes back to the game on the ice has never been better. The relationship with the PA has never been better. And now we have stability and certainty through 2030, and that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the expansion of the schedule next season to 84 games, Keith. Obviously, probably the number one biggest thing to come out of this new collective bargaining agreement. But you mentioned the relationship with
Alex. I just want to say that's something that's in there as a possibility for us. It doesn't mean we're necessarily 100% going to go ahead and agree to do that. But again, the new CBA gives us flexibility and optionality should we decide to do that.
Gotcha. You alluded to the relationship with the union, and it's, even, being on the outside, it's very apparent how different the level of cooperation is right now. And it seems like the place where that's most evident is on the international front. Obviously, with Four Nations last year, it ended up being a resounding success. How are you guys working with the union now on, kind of building on that momentum for, how you guys are going to capitalize this year on the Olympics and then with the World Cup of Hockey in 2028?
So we have first I'd start with the players' interest, right? This is really what is our strength, right? Is the players' interest, dedication to the success of international play. So we have 30% of our players come from overseas. So there's a significant amount of player interest in growing the game, certainly in markets where they play or have played in the past. So I think you need that, because what you saw at the Four Nations, this was no exhibition. And that's what a lot of people thought this would end up to be. This was these guys playing as hard as they do during a traditional season and throughout the Stanley Cup. And you're going to see that in Olympics play as well. So when you have that as the basis for it, right, you have the ability to really do something special. So when you look at the World Cup, it's going to basically be an expansion of Four Nations from the number of countries that are playing. And we work as almost as a joint venture with the Players Association. We work together on every aspect of it, from the bid specs that are out right now to meetings that took place in Toronto and currently in Zurich to look at host cities for the games, and then the development of every aspect of those tournaments. That's how intertwined we are. And then on the broader, just general international business, they have a lot of interest in it, and they are our partners in that. So again, whether it's playing games overseas like we're playing in Sweden, or looking at new markets like we are right now, or playing in new markets like we did a preseason game in Australia. They are right there with us, but the interest from the players and the union to grow internationally, that is one of their biggest priorities. So it aligns our interests, and if our interests are aligned, we have the ability to do not only more, but creative things that might not exist. And that's what we like to do, is kind of push the envelope and do things that are a little bit different.
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of you have these I would kind of think of it as two different categories of international markets from an NHL perspective. You have your Swedens, Finlands, the places where the majority of your players come from, where there's already an established NHL fan base that you guys can continue to grow and tap into. And then you have places like Australia, where you went in 23, and China, where you went in I think 18 and 19, or 17 and 18. How do you sort of prioritize, or the markets where you have this built-in fan base versus the opportunity to tap into new markets?
So we'll continue to maintain and try and grow, obviously, the game in some of those countries that are predominant hockey countries, like you mentioned, Sweden and Finland and some of the others. The problem for us is those are just the smaller commercial markets, right? There's just not as many people in those markets. So the commercial opportunities from a marketer perspective aren't as strong in some countries like Australia, but obviously Australia has its own challenges. As it relates to other markets in Europe, we are looking at some of the more highly populated markets where they play our game, and look at unique opportunities. And we could talk a little bit at some point about what we did with Syria and how we're looking at partnering with non-hockey entities and governing bodies in various countries. But that's really what we're looking for. I think our investment and analyzing and looking at kind of these new markets, right? Whether it be a Germany or the UK, right? And you see that all the time with the other leagues, right? Everyone is looking to, how can I push beyond our current borders? And it's the same for the EPLs and Series A's of the world, Bundesliga, who are all looking to come back into North America. So there are some unique opportunities, if you think about it, to enter into some partnerships with organizations that could grow the NHL outside of North America, where the NHL can help support their efforts inside of North America.
Yeah, and Brad, I think it's interesting. Obviously, the league, we talk a lot about their role in trying to grow the game abroad. How do you look at international growth from a team perspective?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things to talk about there. One, obviously, we have 4 incredible Finnish players on our team. 4 of those are going to be on the Olympic team, in February for Team Finland, and we've got a strong connection there. We actually played there almost a year ago. Last November, we played in Finland. But Keith touches on it. Finland is a really small country and has very finite commercial opportunities. We used to have a great relationship with Nokia. The funny story is Nokia was really close to being the naming rights deal to the new arena back in 2001 in Dallas. And it ended up, getting flipped at the last minute to American Airlines. But Nokia was one of those companies that I would love to have, as a commercial partner, with the Stars. And that's certainly something that we continue to try to chase. But I think, Finland is an obvious one because of our players. The less obvious one that Keith knows that we've been pushing the league to talk about is Mexico, because of our so many now Hispanic hockey fans that live in DFW. For example, we had a Hispanic Heritage Night last night at our preseason game, and so many now, not only Hispanic folks, but specifically Mexican Americans have moved into the DFW area and started to watch our sport. And we've now, for a number of years now, been going down into Mexico to promote youth hockey, to promote, our sport, our brand. And we would like Mexico to become, kind of the Dallas Stars team. So the Cowboys obviously have a strong foothold there. We're trying to follow in their footsteps and go into Mexico. And I think one of the things that we would like to encourage the league to look into is, ultimately playing a game in Mexico City. And I know that they're doing that. So that would be something that, our organization is really pushing. And I think it would have, a major impact on our ability to create and maintain the Hispanic fan base here in Texas. So all those things are really important, and we have to work together with the league on all those things. But I think international growth is absolutely something that we're talking about down here in Dallas. In different ways, and probably every club looks at it differently. But because of Mexico's proximity to our state, that's a big focus for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you see in the NFL, for example, they have their I believe it's called the Global Markets Program or something to that effect, where specific teams have different marketing rights in different countries. Keith, is that something that the NHL has ever considered or looked at, given the, kind of how different teams have, unique kind of access points to different markets?
Yeah, so it is something that we discuss and have been discussing on a regular basis. I think every league is different on how they're structured. You have to weigh the balance of how many people or teams or you are going into a market looking to activate the same set of partners, right? The NFL is limited the number of teams that they allow in a market. In some of these markets, we're kind of at the inception of it. And we, again, have to balance what makes the most sense. I do think that certainly from a marketing perspective, when you know that you're going to bring, say, the Dallas Stars to Finland, using the Stars to grow fandom, merch, all that on a traditional marketing sense as a brand makes sense, but allowing the Stars to, say, go in and secure sponsorships in categories where the league is also looking to secure sponsorships, and other teams, again, there's only so many people you can talk to, so that you got to just be careful, especially in the beginning. So we are weighing those. I think it does make sense over time. It might need to be a little bit more of a mature market before we do that. But in the end, whatever will generate the most amount of revenue league-wide, whether it's any asset, we evaluate it and say, can this be monetized better at the local level by our 32 clubs, or can it be monetized better at the league, or a hybrid of both? And we'll do that analysis with every one of our assets that we have, international being no different.
So obviously this year, Italy is kind of a focus with the Olympics being in Milan. You referenced the Serie A partnership a little earlier. For those in the audience who might not have caught that, tell us a little bit about that partnership. And I know it's sort of a first of its kind thing for the league, but what did you take away from that that you guys can maybe use moving forward? So
Italy is obviously long-term isn't a market that we're pursuing, as we just talked about, not one of our priority markets, but given that the Olympics are there, and what a great, country it will be for the Olympics. Our players are excited about it. Milan is a great destination. We established a relationship years ago with Serie A, insofar as they use the same technology as we do for DED, their version of it in Serie A. I became pretty close to the commercial director of Serie A, and we always talked about how great it would be to collaborate on something. But we were unsure at the time if we were going to go to the Olympics. Once we committed to going to the Olympics, we decided that it would make sense for us to work on something together. And, we have a player media tour in North America. We established a few years ago a European player media tour. So picking a city for the EPMT, as we call it, seemed like Milan was a no-brainer, and entering into a partnership with Serie A made sense. You also look at the makeup of our players, as I said, 30+% from overseas. Many of them, including our North American players, at some point played soccer. Many of them played high-level soccer, and many of them could have played in the professional ranks. You see that before every game. These players are playing two-touch. Brad could certainly talk to it with his team. I've seen his team doing it, outside of the locker room. It's how every team warms up in some form or fashion, and it's a fun game that they all play. So they're not just interested in soccer at the professional level, watching it. They actually are very good at playing. So it was going beyond just capturing content together, seeing our players and their players. It was actually having our players at training camp, the ability to showcase their skills in soccer, not just as professional hockey players. So when you think about it from that sense, it just made sense for us to partner with the number one property in Italy, help provide some relevancy for us in the market, and have that halo effect, the fact that in February we'll be there for the Olympics, so that people around the country know the importance of hockey, and could understand the relationship between our players and theirs. I think, though, the concept for us is one that we are going to continue to develop, and that is looking at properties that can help elevate the NHL in a market, make investments, not just trying to ask for support, but make investments in other properties so that they can support our initiatives depending on the market that we're in. And that could be, again, football or soccer in Europe. That could be rugby or Australian rules football in Australia, New Zealand, or cricket in another country. So we like what we saw coming out of Syria, and believe that it is a model for the NHL to pursue, moving forward in a lot of these new markets that we're looking at.
Alex, I think what I would like to add is that Keith and I need to make an executive decision and just have a stadium game on the island of Capri. Let Steve Mayer have to figure that one out.
I think
that would be a good one. Or play a lot of outdoor games in football stadiums across Wembley. I mean, the NFL's done a great job in Wembley. Imagine putting a rink in there, and we've talked to Wembley. So there's a lot of fun things that we can do to grow. Again, ultimately, it's to grow the game. Growing the game grows revenue, and that's really where we want to be.
Just a reminder to everybody who's tuned in. I believe there's over 100 of you, so thank you so much for being here. Feel free to post any questions that you have for Brad and Keith in the questions tab. I'll go to a couple of those now. Jim Andrews, this one's for you, Brad. He asked about something I definitely wanted to touch on with you, Victory Plus. This is the ad-supported streaming service that you guys launched last year for your local telecasts. Tell us, how would you assess the success of the first year there, and what are the plans for year two?
Yeah, really solid first year. I think from a fan perspective, we obviously made a lot of people happy. The ease of use and being able to to download the app and then to ultimately watch the Stars and for free was very, very important to us. So I think fixing the distribution issue, we certainly accomplished that. And I'm really, really excited this year, now that we have that foundation laid, to see kind of how we can grow both viewership and really getting advertisers excited and growing our revenue that's associated with this. I think we had a really, really good solid base of advertisers that jumped on in the first year last year, and really and kind of went through the experiment with us. And so now everybody's got a year under their belt. Everybody understands it far more than we did a year ago. And I think having a second year now for us to really establish it as a incredible, medium for everybody to watch the games is going to be important. And I think our group and APMC have worked really, really hard to perfect the broadcast. And I think we're going to be in a really good spot this second year to, see some really, really nice and important incremental gains. But they've had some great successes adding the NWSL to their platform. They had a great year with Rangers baseball, and also added Texas high school football to Victory Plus down here, which in Texas is a big deal. So I think over 2 to 3 million people have now downloaded the app, which is a big number, and we had some really incredible viewership data last year, especially in the the later in the part of the year and in the first part of the playoffs, the first round. So some exciting things came out of it, and we're really excited about the future. I know that Keith will probably talk about that on his end too. The TV situation still is an incredible business story and a complex opportunity that we're all having to still pay attention to. I think the who, what, where, when, why, and how much around TV is still TBD. But I think us sitting here in Dallas feel really good that streaming is the future, and we're still excited to kind of pioneer what we've done.
Yeah, Keith, any thoughts or anything you'd want to piggyback on in terms of the lay of the land in terms of local media for across the league?
Brad sentiments. I mean, we were pleased with what we saw with Victory Plus. They have obviously more than just the Dallas Stars. So we've seen, anytime there's interest in our sport and interest from a media perspective, it's great. I think the paradigm is going to continue to change and shift. And that's not just at the local level, that's at the national level as well. Live sports and sports rights are the most valuable asset that a media company can have. So we continue to be bullish on the future in that area, but everyone's going to have to be a little bit more creative. And it's that gravy train, if you will, of money locally, right, is still going to be there. You just got to figure out a new way to achieve it and unlock it. And that's by growth, and that's by scaling up that business, right? So as Brad said, many of our clubs that are off of the traditional television platforms are seeing significant gains in viewership and engagement because there's an opportunity for significantly more fans to watch and participate. And that's really the key is growing and looking at things a bit differently than we have in the past.
Yeah, and I'll plug our upcoming NHL preview section in next week's issue of SBJ. One of the things that I was looking at for that is just the sheer number of NHL teams now that are outside that traditional RSN ecosystem. I think it's almost a third of the American-based teams now that are out off of a cable RSN, whether it be a streaming based model like the Stars or the over-the-air model. So really an interesting time there. Let's go to another question from the audience. Adam Jones asked about something that we talk a lot here at SBJ, loyalty programs, and using those to engage fans. Brad, how are you guys looking at that in Dallas?
Well, we don't have a established loyalty program like I think you're asking about there, but we certainly have the elements of one with our Victory Club members, which is what we call our season ticket holders. Our customer service department here, is dedicated to taking care of those folks, whether that's exchanging tickets or getting extra tickets and all those kind of things. So, but it certainly loyalty has been a topic of discussion, at our club levels, over the last, what I would say, probably decade. And I think we've seen some examples of those programs that have done well. We've also seen programs where those haven't done well. And so we haven't jumped, both feet into that yet, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to. And it's certainly a topic of conversation that we have between our season ticket group and our marketing team.
I would add to that, Adam. We at the league level are looking at it much more than we have in the past about what is, and if there is a league-wide and club solution for this. Obviously, the more information we can aggregate on who our fan is, the better we're going to be in every aspect of our business from a database marketing standpoint. So it is something where some clubs have done it and done it really well, and others, again, are looking how to improve. But the future of ticketing and what that looks like, it's kind of all wrapped up into one. And the fact that, there really is a world now without borders to some degree in so many areas of, media and engagement, that gives us an opportunity to look at fan loyalty a little bit differently. And how do you create something that is not just localized in one market, but that can be league wide and used in various ways. And obviously our business partners would love the ability to tap into a robust database, which we know is extremely valuable. So it's a great question, and one for which I can tell you that we're looking at significantly more now than we have in the past.
Yeah, I know Montreal has a very long-standing loyalty program. Keith, any other teams that stand out to you as having been successful there?
I mean, there's a lot. I would say, Florida just launched in July, something brand new that is pretty innovative given the background of their owner, and how that it's not just loyalty, it's a currency, right? A legitimate currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are again, I think, new ways to look at, when most people say fan loyalty programs, I think it's a little bit more of a, hey, let's capture a name when they come in. Or, if we're going to do an event, let's make sure we get their information. We got to look at it, much more futuristic look at businesses and how we can go ahead and say, what do we want this to look like in 5 or 10 years league wide? So again, Edmonton does a good job. I mean, the Rangers, there's lots of clubs that have done a really good job focused on, again, their kind of local loyalty, which is where it begins. But how do we take that and make something on a global level that is much more impactful for everyone than it would be just on a local level?
We've got another question in the chat. This one's from Mason Trafford, and we've touched on this a little bit, but I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. I think it's about sort of the relationship between the league and clubs when it comes to partnership opportunities. How do you guys, work together in terms of reviewing partnership opportunities, and whether, I guess, in some cases, maybe there's an opportunity to take a team level partnership and broaden it to the league level, or vice versa? We'll start with you, Brad.
I call Keith and say, "Can you please bless this deal, Keith?" And then hope that he does.
And I work for Brad and 31 other presidents, so basically whatever they want, we try and do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
in reality, our sponsorship teams work really closely with Keith's group. Obviously, the league has some rules and some parameters that teams have to work around on deals. Gambling has been one of those over the years that we've had to work around, and in some cases we still do. And those discussions happen, all the time with all the clubs, I'm sure. And certainly, if it gets big enough, I do call Keith and say, "Hey, here's our situation. What do you think?" And usually, we can work out a solution. I think the NHL is in the business of trying to help us, grow our businesses. And so Keith has always been a good friend to us in that situation.
Thanks, Brad. I'll give you your money later. But the reality, Alex, and this is every property, but we pride ourselves on, we work for the 32 clubs. I mean, that is the reality. We obviously have different businesses, and sometimes we could be at odds as far as, what our league objectives are versus a club. But I think it's all about communication. We have set up so many processes league wide to address this. You were talking about media, right? There's an entire media group here led by David Proper, who works with every one of the clubs on their local deals, as well as updating them regularly on our national business. We have a group that works on policies at the league level and the club level. We have a separate group that has dedicated function of working with our clubs solely on corporate partnerships and business development, because a lot of the league deals could stem from club deals and vice versa, right? So we're always trying to push national and local, or local and national. So we've set up the league so that we can work directly with our clubs and support them on all these different business initiatives. Because in the end, we're one entity, and we need to make sure that the national business is strong and successful, but that doesn't work unless the local business is the same.
One more question from the audience before I bring Dan back on to close things out. This is from Lloyd Ney. He asks, when it comes to international brand engagement, what role does youth, amateur, and junior participation play in that strategy?
I would say, Lloyd, it's not just international. We need to continue to find ways to put sticks in hands of kids, get kids to play the sport, watch the sport, engage in the sport, whether that's through ice hockey or other areas of playing our game, whether EA Sports in the NHL game, whatever it may be. But certainly, as part of our international strategy moving forward, it certainly has to be, especially in markets where it might not be the primary sport or one of the primary sports, to look at it and say we have to get participation. That is going to be key, and that can be done again through more traditional channels, or as we look at YouTube and our YouTube strategy and how we are looking at YouTube Kids as a vehicle. We currently do a lot, as you know, with Roblox. It's one of our biggest initiatives. We're kind of a leader in the league space as its engagement on Roblox or Twitch, whatever that vehicle may be. We need to find ways across the world to engage potential fans to become hockey fans.
Brad, any thoughts on the participation front?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it's not just international, it's right here in Texas. I mean, we have obviously a vibrant youth hockey business here. We've built it from, the ground up, going back to when this team, got here to Dallas in 1992, 93. So getting, young boys and girls into the game at a grassroots level here in North Texas has been, one of the biggest things, the Dallas Stars have brought to this area and to the state. We have 16 sheets of ice, right now, and without us, there probably wouldn't be any of those. So the kids that are playing hockey in DFW, and we now have some in the NHL level that have come through our program, are a testament to this philosophy of getting sticks in everyone's hands at an early age, creating fans at an early age, and letting people grow up with this great sport that we're in. So it's not just international, it's right here in our background, in our backyard.
Awesome. Before I turn it back over to Dan, just want to, there's so many interesting topics heading into this season, and we've only kind of scratched the surface here today. So I'd encourage you all to check out next week's issue of SBJ. We're going to have a full feature on the league's international business, on explaining the changes to revenue sharing under the new collective bargaining agreement, and a lot of other commissioner Q&A. So lots of exciting stuff there. So I'd encourage you to either pick up the magazine or check out the website next week. And with that, I will turn it back over to Dan.
Thanks, Alex. Brad, Keith, thank you so much. A round of applause. I know it's very busy for you. Thanks for taking the time. Best of luck with the upcoming season. To the audience, I'm dropping a link in the chat to upcoming episodes of SBJ Live, in addition to checking out everything that Alex has done for the magazine for next week as we head into the NHL season. Make sure you check out what we've got in store for SBJ Live over the next few weeks. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, all.
Thank you, Alex.